Hi, I'm Lydia Denworth. I'm a science journalist. Maybe you've seen my work in Scientific American or The Atlantic, The New York Times, or other publications, but I am also the author of Friendship, the Evolution, Biology, and Extraordinary Power of Life's Fundamental Bond. I'm very pleased to be part of CMOM's Parenting in Place program to talk about how the new science of friendship applies to parents and young children, and to talk a little bit about how to think about friendship during the pandemic. So let's start with the basics. There are 4 questions I get asked a lot. The first is simple. What is a good friend, especially for a young child? Well, as it happens, one of my favorite definitions comes from a study that child psychologists did with very young children. They asked 3-year-olds to define a good friend. And the 3-year-old said 3 things: that a good friend plays with you, shares with you, and doesn't hit you. That's a pretty good summary. It also reflects the concrete way that children think when they're that age. As they get a little bit older, their friendships will become more abstract, more relational and emotional, but those same elements will remain. So playing will turn into hanging out. Sharing will turn into cooperating and being helpful. And not hitting, well, friendship should always make you feel good. In fact, those 3-year-olds came awfully close to the core definition that evolutionary biologists and anthropologists have arrived at in looking at friendship across cultures and even across species. They say a friendship needs 3 things. It's reliable, positive, and cooperative. Another question I get asked is, how do kids make friends? Well, they start learning to be social from their parents when they're very young. But then as they spend more time with peers, there are other skills that they develop. They learn about trust and loyalty and collaboration. They learn how to give support and not just receive it. And there are 2 important phases to friendship development. The first is that kids do things together. They play games, they play with toys, they maybe build with Legos or whatever it is. And then friendships deepen and grow as kids have shared emotional experiences. That doesn't have to be a deep personal conversation. It can be just having fun together. As they get a little older, into middle school, their friendships will start to coalesce around their developing interests and identities. And that's normal, and that's fine. In fact, in 6th grade, 2/3 of kids change friends between September and June. So remember that. It's totally normal. That brings me to question number 3. What is normal? Well, there is a wide range of normal when it comes to friendship. Introverted, extroverted, it all works. What matters more than whether your child has 1 friend or 10 is that they have that one friend. So the ability to make and keep just one close friend has been seen as vital to children's well-being for decades. So if you're worried that your child does not have that one friend, what can you do? When should you worry? Well, experts recommend that you watch your child over a range of settings, so not just in school. Is your child able to be comfortable and social in family get-togethers with siblings or cousins? What about at other activities in different environments? If you can find some places that your child does well, then take note of what's going on there and maybe try to build more of that into your child's life. If there's nowhere where your child feels socially comfortable and confident, then maybe it's a good idea to get some expert help and consult with a psychologist. The last question is, how can parents help, especially during this pandemic? Well, first of all, friendship is important across our lives, but it's never more important than when we're young, because what we learn about friendship early on either helps us or hurts us for the rest of our lives. And we know now that over the long haul, friendship is as important as diet and exercise for our health. In fact, a long-running study out of Harvard found that the best predictor of who was a healthy and happy 80-year-old was how satisfied people were with their relationships at 50. Now, I know that 50 and 80 seem very, very far away in your child's lives, and they are. But I bring that up because it's important to remember that friendship is a lifelong endeavor, and that if we want our children to have happy, healthy, fulfilled lives, we need to make sure that they're good at relationships and friendship. So how can you help? By talking about it, by keeping the friendship factor in mind as a parent, right? Too often we talk about achievement, but we don't talk about friendship. That's an achievement too, being good at it. And we don't all come into the world knowing exactly how to be a good friend. It's a skill that can be learned. It's a muscle that should be strengthened. So talk about it. Talk about playing, sharing, not hitting, and then later talk about being reliable and cooperative and positive. What else can you do? Well, during the pandemic, the really important thing that all the experts I've spoken with say is that the youngest children, so that's up to about 8 or 9, what they really have needed is to feel safe and secure. Yes, they miss their friends. Yes, they're not enjoying themselves and they are missing out on some of that peer-to-peer stuff that's really important. But the most critical thing is that they feel safe. And so if you are delivering that, you're doing well. So rest a little bit easier maybe. The second thing is, though, that it is important to keep getting your kids out there, connecting with other kids to the extent that you can. We're a long way into this, so you don't need me to tell you that now, but I'll say a few things. One is get outside. Spring is coming, so that's always good for kids, and it's going to be even more important now. Technology. Some connection is better than none, and there's a lot of new important research showing that what you should worry about is not the total amount of time online, thank goodness this year, but content and context. So if your kids are hanging out with their friends online, even if it's playing video games, that is probably good. They're getting a little bit of social time. This pandemic has also been a time to focus on a handful of good friends. So the friends the kids already had, maybe, even if they were just starting a new school. Do what works. Do what is possible. Don't expect that you're going to be able to help your kid make new friends this year. And then finally, just because there are limits to how much socializing kids can do doesn't mean that you can't talk about it at home. Talk about what those good social skills are, what a good friend looks like. Maybe play child psychologist and ask your child to describe a good friend. Maybe help your child write a note to a friend that they miss, and they could say what they appreciate about that friend. That is the kind of thing that friends do for each other. So during this pandemic and after it's over, what you can do is remember the friendship factor in your parenting decisions. It's not the only thing, but it's awfully important, and it's more important than we often realize. And nurture your child's friendships early and often. If you do that, they will thank you when they're 80.